Well, hello there, boys and girls. It's Covert Witness, and we're back again for one of my fourth broadcast in the Covert Witness blogs. These blogs that I do to camera are very specialist blogs. They're not for the faint-hearted. It's hardcore UFO research and interaction and paranormal goings-on. I thought, what can I talk about over Easter for my Covert Witness blog? What can I talk about? And it's been since I did my last broadcast. I've done two talks. I did one at the Probe UK conference to do with UFOs and the interaction with them, and I also did a mind control lecture as well, all about mind control and the way people are manipulated. And on this at this Easter time, which is a time of religious thinking, and I have slowly become a very religious person after what's happened to me. I thought about what I might want to talk about. What is it all about ultimately? And the constant theme of my lectures for these past 2 weeks, when I've been out on the road giving these lectures, has been consciousness. And the fact that we have, as a race, as a human civilization, forgotten who we are in terms of consciousness. And I think it's very true to say that there's a lot to be said for spiritual warfare. I'm into, now and again, I like to look at gospel music. I'm a big fan of the rock gospel band POD, Payable on Death. I often watch them. I think they're absolutely fabulous because it's all about consciousness, and this leads us to where it's going to. Just a couple of pointers for you to have a look at about the theme of what I'm talking about. There is my camera. There is an interesting thing that I did a lecture on, which seems to go down a storm with people, that I did last year, called the Bach Saga. And what it is, it's to do with the house of the Bock family saga, which is a story about how this saga went down through the centuries in terms of it's missing from Scandinavian folklore, and it's called the Bock Saga. And it's the saga that was an oral tradition that's handed down, and it was handed down to a man called Bock. Now, it's interesting to note that there is in my lectures I indicate that there is a tenuous link, and an interesting one, with Tolkien and the Lord of the Rings, the Ring of Power. This is because the consciousness that we've left behind and forgotten who we are is still there today, and like water, it finds itself. It will find you. This consciousness, this higher evolved consciousness, will find you. It will find you. And so throughout the centuries, it first began, the Bock Saga really began, I suppose roughly we'll say, just for simplicity's sake, it's a bit more complex than that, but it began at the time of Atlantis. All the land is ice. It's known as Atlantis. All the land is ice. And it began at that point there, where the royal house of Asa dictated to the world, after a global disaster, dictated to the world to repopulate itself via language and the written word and sound, because the world's population could not write. Hence the Bock Saga. And this Bock Saga is very interesting because it talks about the tradition of the Bock family, and the fact that individuals who were aware of this story were persecuted. And I highly recommend the teachings of Bock and his story that he has to tell. Bock, spelled I-O-R, separation, the surname B-O-C-K, Bock. And what is, I think, even more of curiosity is a linguistics professor at Washington University, who indicated quite simply that there always is, with people who are giving a story that is stranger than fiction, always this kind of great big hook, or this kind of like subliminal understanding that possibly it is not fiction at all. It's actually based on truth. So there is an element in every fictional story. There is an element of truth, and that could be possibly true. After my study of the Bock Saga, that could be possibly true with Tolkien, with the work of Tolkien and the Lord of the Rings. I strongly believe that and the linguistics professor Washington Uni shared this kind of thing, that an element of Tolkien's story may have been based on real life. And there is this distinct possibility that before all the land is ice, as land is, Atlantis, there possibly did exist this mythical kingdom. And there's a possibility as well, which I find very interesting, that Tolkien was aware of the Bock Saga and was possibly a student of Aya Bock and a student of the hidden Scandinavian mythology. And that I find very interesting indeed, because it's all about consciousness. In other words, the royal house of Asa, they built this, they did this alphabet, this symbolic alphabet, which more or less said in symbols, populate the world. After all the land is ice, populate the world. And it probably came from higher consciousness, which is what happens. And this permeates throughout history. This higher consciousness permeates throughout history. And there's a possibility that Tolkien read the Bock Saga and understood it. And I think that Tolkien went very deep into it, and symbolically he displayed in the Lord of the Rings mankind's kind of seeking of this higher force, of this consciousness, throughout the saga. He created language on it as well. I mean, interestingly enough, the Bock Saga, the language of the Bock Saga is formed from something called the Rot language, or root language, which is meant to be the root of all languages on Earth, hence it's called the Rot language. I find that absolutely fascinating. So I thought that might be, people who follow me or know that I've studied the Bock Saga, I've looked at it. I've also looked at the work of Robert Masters, and the work of something called the Path of the Fifth Way, Goddess Sekhmet, the Path of the Fifth Way. And that one as well, there's a very interesting incantation in that, which I use quite often to understand, and it really does sum it up at this Easter time, because it begins with Sa, Sakem, Sahu, yeah, and it's Sa, and that means the breath of life. Sekem means the word of might, and this phrase Sahu, which means realized human, Sahu, realized human, S-A-H-U, and what that basically means is that we are of a realized consciousness that is kind of like hooked into the cosmos with a unique signature. We as human beings carry a unique signature that is linked to the higher cosmic thinking. Probably that's why, and some of us are aware of this, and that's probably why we get tracked and followed and targeted like we do, because some of us are more evolved at some levels, and that's maybe the wrong way to say it. Some of us have a realisation and an awareness that this cosmic consciousness and ordering is present. And if you really, really do get to that stage, you'll start getting all kinds of insanity and strange goings-on coming after you. You certainly will. And that, I do believe, is because that this planet is controlled by an overlording type consciousness, a prison warder type consciousness, that is equally smart and intelligent. It's a form of life that must be respected, but has created hell for itself. And that's an interesting observation that I would make. I've had extreme paranormal experiences since childhood, and I was awoken a few weeks back now, about 3 in the morning, awoken to something that was there, that was present, that had been around here for eons, and wasn't very pleasant, and it was aware of me, and I was aware of it, and it's just the general nature of consciousness. In fact, if you look on a website called newcosmology.ru, the Russians again, and look at the psychic spies of the Russian military, who have this website that's not in blazing lights, there's some very interesting articles on there about the kind of like the control of consciousness and where we're going as a race within what's termed under the new sphere, hence new cosmology, within the framework of man and our evolution and evolvement. And this memory that was shown to me actually came from my stranger UFO paranormal experiences, where I was shown what we had forgotten. And we have forgotten. We certainly have. We become a society that isn't caring anymore. We become a faceless society that seems to be dominated by money. We become definitely a faceless society, and I shudder to think what's going to happen at the next coming up at the next general election. I really do, where we're tied into an international banking system that seems to rape and pillage nation states. And I might add that the Ukraine situation with Russia and the demonisation of Russia and this continual spin in the media of fighting for freedom and democracy, which is a spin developed by Bernays in World War I, for example, if you care to have a look, is very worrying. They're very worrying times that we're actually living with. And it's a strange thing, but I think we know as a race that this is, nobody dare say, no world leader dare say that this is absolutely insane, which it is. It's not good. The situation in the Ukraine, and as I say, I've had the strange goings on surrounding that, which is interesting. Another interesting thing that's happened for viewers of my covert blogs is I'm having some Clairaudient goings on as well. I'm hearing spirit, which is unusual. Well, it's not unusual, it often happens, I don't talk about it, but just recently I've been hearing spirit quite often, coming in, going out, coming in, people who are on the other side. It's not something that I profess to be good at. I don't really talk about it because I find it a most sacred ability. But I appear to have I don't know, somebody on the other side keeps coming over to me and, as it were, and talking, and going back again. Only names of people so far, but it's just interesting to know what's going on there. And on the UFO front, all quiet. That doesn't mean to say that they're not quiet, they're there all right. And I think we'll find, as I say in my previous Covert Witness blogs, that we'll probably film something coming in over the house. They are there. We're not alone in the universe. There's been some spectacular goings on with them, and we're trying to keep the journals up to date and try and keep track of everything. But it's very difficult. It's hard. It gets very tiring and very heavy going, and can get very exhausting indeed. So, to sum up then, the theme is consciousness and the fact that we have forgotten who we are. And I think that's probably the message of the UFO interactions that I've had in the past and more recently, that we have forgotten who we are. And that I think all nation states should be aware of where we are heading for, which isn't a good place to be, I don't think. And we need to be aware of this. And I think that most world leaders know that we are not alone. Recently, the Defence Secretary of Japan indicated that there was a situation where the UFOs didn't come from outer space and this, that and the other. And governments are lying on the issue. For some reason, they're actually lying on the issue. We are not alone. We haven't been for a very long time. And surely it's worth an exploration. And at this talk that I gave at the Probe conference, I talked about biomechanical ships. Because there's a lady in Czechoslovakia who sent me some information who was channeling an alien. It was a very interesting dialogue. What she said, and what was fascinating was this alien, this ET she was channeling, referred to his ship as like a living being with affection. And it's interesting that these ships are indeed alive in their own way. They're biomechanical, they're very clever craft. And this raised a few eyebrows when I indicated that you could actually possibly communicate with one as if you were communicating with a human being or telepathically, bizarre as it may seem. And I was explaining all this stuff to do with biomechanical UFOs and how it appears that their minds interface with the craft and all that, which endless possibilities there. In fact, during my interactions with the UFOs, they said that such a craft would be very good for air-sea rescue capability. I'm going to find out more, ladies and gentlemen, because I have to keep an open mind. But what they're saying is these biomechanical craft will be brilliant for air-sea rescue, and in line with the current doctrine of speaking to them, as some people who are in the know, no military information is given by them, all to do with medical-related stuff and that kind of thing. And so these ships have their own mind. They can sometimes go off into the sunset. But I then had an interesting conversation with a most unlikely man after the conference, who enjoyed my talk thoroughly and confirmed all that I was saying to do with these biomechanical UFOs. I think the fact of the matter is that we have the technology present, and we're currently developing it at the moment. And as I've often said in the other blogs, I'm wondering if these ships have rights, if they are like a human mind. You know, do they think of their own free will? And according to the UFO people, they do. They do think of their own free will and can disappear. I'm currently, India Daily had some very interesting stuff on its website about all this, but it's all been taken off, and luckily I've kept the information about how these ships possibly work and interface. It was all chucked out on their website, all this information, which I believe quite possibly is from some sort of think tank in India that just dumped it out in the media. I do feel. I could be wrong, but there you go. So, that about sums up the Covert Witness blog for this week, this month, whatever. I'll just keep them coming as they go. I'm waffling slightly, I know. But I think that the main thing to bear in mind is we've forgotten who we are. That's the thing, and we are linked to the higher cosmic consciousness. My UFO interactions are continuing, as is the targeting is still going on as well, which is something that I have to live with. I'm known as a targeted individual. I've been labelled recently. I was labelled as uber paranoid. Try walk in my shoes, sonny boy, and then you'll see what it's all about. But there you go. That's the way things happen. And these, the biomechanical UFOs and the interaction goes on, and we'll just see where it leads. Currently, it's all quiet at the moment, but that does not mean to say that they're not out there, because they are. And I'm sure that in the weeks ahead, even in the days ahead, some other interaction will happen with them, because we're not alone. Okay, thank you for listening. The website tonytopping.co.uk.